It started in 5th grade. I wasn't a complex kid. I didn't have a phone, no social media, that wasn't allowed until near the end of middle school. And I only had a tablet I could use for certain times of the day. My parents weren't really strict, and since I played outside all the time with my neighbors, I didn't really mind. It was to keep me from getting addicted to online games and developing a short attention span. To be honest, I'm grateful for it in hindsight. It made my peers' job of stalking me much harder. Anyway, a kid in my class, let's call him Damien, was weird. I didn't know him for long, but he was the worst sort of boy. He'd pull at girls' bra straps in the middle of class, making a loud noise and telling the teacher the girls were distracting him. He'd tattle on you for everything, especially if you didn't include him in something. That's how this all starts, at the beginning of October of 5th grade. My best friend at the time, who I'll call Jane, had a strange sense of humor like I did. She didn't have any electronics at all. And when we were younger, those fake chat stories were all the rage over YouTube. So I wrote down a bunch of them with glitter pens and was going to give them to her the next day in class so she could have something fun to read that evening, and we could joke about it the next day. In comes this annoying, irritating, and obnoxious little boy, Damien. He threw a fit about not being able to look at the present for my friend. It got to the point that I just looked him in the eye and was like, "It's about girl stuff, Damien. You wouldn't want to read it. Unless you want to know how periods work?" Obviously, I was lying. But this kid demands to read it anyway, as if he had a right to my belongings. I scoff and ask my teacher to use the restroom so I don't have to listen to him anymore and he could calm down while I was gone. Apparently, while I was gone, Jane saw him root through my bag. I sadly sat too close to him. And he pulled out my gel-colored pens and started writing nasty things into the little packet I was going to give to my friend using keywords such as murder, kill, fuck, and other cuss words that would be considered inappropriate. When I came back, he ran to the teacher and tattled on me that I was threatening to kill his family and murder his friends if he told someone about it. Lo and behold, my teacher snatched the gift I was going to give my friend, read through it, then looked at me with anger and immediately sent me to the office. Long story short, my parents were called, and I was suspended for 3 days because of what Damien ended up writing in the packet of fake texts because I threatened to harm another student even though I never did. And while my friend protested that Damien wrote it. Along with this, they also ended up giving me a whole month's worth of detention, 2 hours before lunch every day. Just because when I was talking to my friend, Damien decided to eavesdrop on our conversation and tattled that I was spreading nasty rumors about some of the other girls in my grade, and I wanted to hurt them when I was telling Jane I heard some of the other girls say about her. So that was a second strike on my record, and that's why there was so many detentions. My school was strict. Now that I have some basic explanations out of the way, I can continue about the main story here. After both of those instances, Damien continued to find little things to plant on me, rat me out for, or just bug me about in general. He went as far as to claim me and my best friend were lesbians and dating, but that I was cheating on her with a 6th grader. Like, no hate, but I do not like girls. I didn't really care about the rumor, but I was annoyed that he roped my friend into it. Finally, it all came to a head the next semester. We used to have to take 5-4-1 tests all the time, and on our little sheets we wrote down our scores and signatures from the teacher on. We had our names and addresses on them so they could send them to our parents at the end of the 9 weeks to show that we were on track. Apparently, Damien had copied down my address while I wasn't looking and proceeded to convince his parents to get their driver by my house consistently to say hi to a friend when all he really did was hurl insults at me or throw mean notes into my yard. He's rich. A bunch of people in my town would be considered rich. Majority of neighborhoods around me have large houses, mansions. We're middle class. He took pictures of me while I was outside playing with friends and showed me the next day with the quip that I can't outrun him and that he knows where I live, so don't make me mad. It got super creepy when he started to print the photos of me and keep them in his school binder, and I told my teacher and principal about it, but they just told me boys will be boys and that I shouldn't be looking into his private folders without his permission. Like it should be allowed for him to have photos of me without my consent when you can clearly tell in the photos I didn't know they were being taken. Even my parents didn't believe me, saying I was just making it up to blame the kid that got me in trouble. I wasn't lying, but all the adults thought I was because I've already gotten into so much trouble that year with little fault of my own. But he kept harassing me, taking pictures, leaving notes in my yard and backpack, messing me up during reading tests at the computers. He would sit too close to me in class, watch me at recess, and try and hug or touch me all the time. No matter how much I complained or told adults, they just told me to be happy that a boy likes me that much. This kept happening all through 6th grade. And when it came to my first middle school dance, he got worse. He tried to take photos up my dress, tried to steal one of my heels when I put them aside so I could run around the gym with my friends, stole money from my purse, etc. I'm pretty sure he had an obsession with me, distorted as it was. He would comment about my body during the gym class we shared, would complain I didn't wear shorts that showed my ass enough in 7th grade, and talked about how nice it was to look at me with a bloody nose and messed up hair. This was after I ran into the bleachers when playing Capture the Flag, and I tried to snatch it from his hands. He jumped up onto the bleachers out of bounds, causing me to not be able to slow down enough, and my shoes caught on the floor, causing me to roll, getting burned on my arm from skinning it, and slamming my head into the bleachers. That hurt like a bitch, mind you. After that comment, I tried telling the principal again of the situation. He didn't care, so I stopped trying. He continued with the behavior to the point most days I couldn't bring myself to go to school. I would hide in the gym locker room bathrooms to avoid going out after roll call just so I wouldn't see him. At the end of 7th grade, he was caught with cigarettes with some other boys in the gym locker room, so his parents sent him off to military school. I bring up this whole story. That was so long ago because he just recently tried to add me again on my socials. I obviously blocked him. But even then, now nearly 5 years passed, and he still tries to keep in contact with me. I don't think I'll be prepared for a day I have to see him again. I lived alone in a small house in a small town in New Zealand, far away from the biggest region, Auckland. This all happened around 6 years ago, so some parts may be altered as I can't vividly remember this incident, when quite frankly I should. This was one of the scariest incidents that had occurred in my lifetime, even until now. It all started when one morning I decided to open my front door to go and buy groceries I'd forgotten to purchase from the local market that started around 8:30 a.m. every day, even on weekdays. Instead, I found the strangest thing waiting for me outside. Lying in the center, on my doorstep, was a small USB flash drive. So small that I nearly stepped on it. At first, I was confused and took a second to look around if anyone was pranking me. You know how those teens are these days, I thought. But when the outside of my house was dead silent, the questions began to flood in my head. Who put that there? Was the obvious first thought. It was just a generic USB stick, no label or anything. No one would waste their time to walk up to my house, placing it on my doorstep, I thought. But that was exactly what had just happened. There was no way to know where it came from or who dropped it, or if they purposely did so for the sole purpose for someone curious and lacked common sense to plug it in. Well, I did what anyone else would do. I took it inside and thought it'd be smart to plug it into my computer. The device was full of pictures. In fact, nothing but pictures. Dozens of them filling every tiny space the USB drive could hold. I then opened the first picture and clicked through all of them in order. The first few were just shots from around town. General places that I recognized and pass through sometimes when I'm taking my morning stroll around the park. The fourth image was taken in our town's busiest street. In the image, the street was full of people. But there was somebody in it that caught my attention immediately. Me. The image showed me in amongst the crowd, just minding my own business buying groceries for my BBQ a day ago. Well, at first I thought, this was a small town. Was it just a coincidence that I was in the picture? The fifth image had been taken on the same day. Again, it was taken in our town. Again, I was in it. The photographer was closer to me this time, a little too close, I thought. Whoever had taken these pictures of me, I hadn't noticed them at that time. Next came several more pictures of me in various locations around town. Then something more chilling. A photo of a house. My house. It was nighttime in that image, and the living room light was on. I clicked through the next image. It was another image of my house, this time taken even closer. Through the living room window, you could see me sitting on the couch on my phone. I could tell from the clothes I was wearing that it had been taken the night before, right after I'd taken a shower. I had no idea somebody had been outside watching me. I kept clicking through the images on the drive. Photo after photo of me inside my house, taken from just outside my window. Because it was so light inside and so dark outside, I was totally unable to see that somebody was watching me from out there. I couldn't see them, but they could see me clear as day. They didn't even need to use the camera light. After 20 or so pictures of me just inside my house, there came a real curveball. An image taken from inside my hallway. The man or woman or whoever was taking these pictures of me had been inside my house the night before. There were photos of my living room, now lightless and empty, obviously taken after I'd gone to sleep. Photos of my kitchen, of my dining area, my stairwell, and several taken as the unknown figure ascended my stairs, towards where I was sleeping. My brain started to run wild with thoughts about who had been following me. Had I wronged someone in the past? Said something wrong to the wrong guy? Was this just some weirdo who decided to target me? Were they armed when they came to pay me a visit? Whatever the case, somebody had come inside my house at night and taken pictures of all my rooms, including my bedroom. The second to last picture was of me, fast asleep in bed, totally oblivious to the person in my home. The final image was just a handwritten note framed in close-up. The message simply read, "Never hide a spare key under your doormat." I have since moved house. I currently live in a smaller rural town. It's pretty removed, but still has a lot of good shopping and eating options and public spaces. We even have a few breweries and bars now. It's a newly hip place with farming on the outskirts, so I can get my eggs and veggies fresh from the source. The pandemic really hurt business locally, though, and pretty much the only regular delivery options were Walmart and Amazon for a minute. I was pretty excited when more local options popped up on various apps much later. However, at this time for main necessities and grocery items, there weren't any options besides getting a store delivery from the Walmart a town over. This meant a lot of people we didn't know well popping through, and it drove some of the older folks crazy, all over the neighborhood talking about cars and people they didn't recognize, etc. I embraced it. It made my life easier. It was great for a bit. So at this point, I lived with my teenage son, who is a gangly 6'4" and my then boyfriend was staying to be near his elderly parents. He's 6'3" and broadly built. It's a tiny space, and I felt a little cramped with the big guys always around. So once in a while, I'd send them off on an errand, or they'd visit my boyfriend's parents and give me some space to work on things or just enjoy being alone. One of those days I got a delivery. I recognized the guy and said hi, tipped him well, went about my life. An hour later, he was back at my door. He was kind of weird. He was creepy because I have steps in front of my door, but no porch. He would knock and stand beside the steps where I couldn't see him through the eye hole. But I could see him through my window. He was next to it. So I talked through the window like, "Sup? Can I help you?" I have window film over the lower window for privacy, but I can stand on my couch and see through the upper window above people's heads and see outside. And the upper window pulls down too to let in air multiple ways. He kept trying to look for where my voice was coming from before answering and telling me he forgot a bag in the delivery. I confirmed I got it all and thanked him. He left. I didn't want to open the door again after he noticed I was alone. I got new neighbors directly in the unit across from me. They got a Ring camera. She reached out to me and told me someone came by knocking and had sat on my steps for about half an hour. I was down at my boyfriend's house with my son at the time, and she sent me the Ring cam. It looked like that guy. And it was like 8 p.m. I didn't have any open orders either. I reached out to Walmart and they were totally unhelpful. They told me they'd be making sure he didn't deliver anything to me in the future, but wouldn't give me any info I could pass on to security or the police in case anything further happened. I wanted to at least file a report with my security in case anything happened again because it felt really weird. But they told me the police would need to reach out. I had the feeling it would escalate, and it did. I didn't want to be home alone anymore. I didn't order delivery. I just tried to cover my bases. However, my neighbor did order a delivery, and somehow it came through that guy again. So he was on the property anyway and just 3 feet away from my door. The creepy thing was, I heard it being dropped off and had the urge to look through the peephole and saw him standing right in front of my stairs looking around my door and living room windows. He stood there for like 5 minutes until my neighbor opened the door to get her groceries, and I told her that's the guy from the Ring camera. She contacted Walmart too and asked that he doesn't deliver anything anymore. A few weeks went by, and Christmas was around the corner. I had ordered a few items from Amazon, and they were all arriving together. I knew they were on my front porch. I could hear them being dropped, and the delivery guy knocked. I saw him walk off. My boyfriend was on the couch with his headphones on working, and I was cooking dinner. I figured I'd grab them in a moment. They are fine on my steps at the moment. There's a camera there. If anything happens, it'll be 5 minutes tops. I finished plating and brought the food in, and as I was setting the plates down, the front doorknob, which wasn't locked, gave a tiny turn. The deadbolt was still latched, but the knob wasn't, and I could hear it. My boyfriend couldn't. I stopped and pointed it out. My boyfriend is completely oblivious to these kinds of things. He took his headphones off, peeking through the top window, and said, "Oh, you must be hearing things. No one's touching your doorknob. There's no one out there." He walked over and ripped the door open to show me there's nothing there. But there's the guy again, crouched up against the wall under the window, hand still on the knob, trying to turn it silently. He looked mortified to see him opening the door, and when my son came up too, he looked really confused. He asked for me. He must have known my name from the deliveries because he used the name I have on my account, which isn't the name everyone knows me by. My boyfriend asked what he needed, and the guy reached down and picked up the Amazon box and said, "Delivery," and handed it off and then left? It was really strange. I explained to my boyfriend that he was not delivering those boxes. They were already there. We took the footage to the police, and I tried to reach out to Walmart. The police told me they reached out to Walmart and just got a bunch of clueless, basic customer service agents with no idea how to proceed. And that if he came back, I need to call them ASAP so they can get to him in person. I was really scared, though. I was glad he knew I wasn't in the house alone now. But I felt like he might take more drastic measures, knowing that too. I don't know how people like that think. So I was just running through every possible scenario. The sprinkler system automatically kicks in at 11 p.m. It cycles through the plot of land for an hour. It starts at my bedroom wall, which faces the parking lot. By midnight, it's gone around the entire space in tandem and reaches the front lawn space to the right of my front door. I'm in bed when I hear it click on. It's noisy because it hits gravel, too. It covered up a lot of the sounds. When it switched off to the next area, I heard a strange shuffling. We have a lot of cats outside, though. I wasn't too alarmed. There's one window at the side of my house that faces the front lawn spots, but it's blocked off by a large entertainment system. It's the only blocked window I have, and besides my bedroom window, it's also the only one not visible from the Ring camera. But all my windows are always locked overnight. The next morning, when I was leaving for work, the window screens were both removed and placed beneath the windows. There were handprints smudged all over the glass. There were no clear footprints, just deep, muddy sloshes. I filed another report, and they were similarly unhelpful. Basically telling me I needed a camera and to stay up to make sure I could see it happen and call in. I didn't even bother contacting Walmart again. They were totally useless. The last thing to happen was when my boyfriend was coming over pretty late. He worked a long day, and he came up around 3 a.m. I knew he was coming, but I was woken up by loud fighting outside. He had pulled into the parking lot, and this guy was underneath my car. He scrambled under when the car was pulling in. My boyfriend pretended to walk to the fire and watched him slide out and try to hide behind the parked cars, but it looked like he was messing with my car. My boyfriend had him pinned, and I called the police. There was an AirTag taped under my car. He was trying to track me away from my house. The guy was arrested with other charges, too. I didn't hear anything else from it. I gave statements and incident report numbers and was told I might need to testify, but it's never happened. I haven't had any incidents since then, though.